Everybody with us on Zoom and in person. I hope everybody's enjoying the cooler weather and put us in that much of a better mood. And I would like to recognize, I see Commissioner Alpert is with us. So welcome, Commissioner. We're glad to have you with us. So
thank you.
Any other housekeeping things? Can we move right into approval of the secretaries, declaration of a quorum? So I think we've got everybody here. So a super quorum. So welcome everybody, and so glad to be able to feel a little bit better about meeting in person. So Jamie and the secretary's report, we have everybody, I hope, got the minutes. Any comments to those? I thought they were excellent minutes, and I think I don't have any changes. But
anybody else?
Anything else?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And treasurer's report, Clark is.
Oh, actually, I was going to say Clark.
Oh yeah, Clark.
We do not. We don't have everybody here.
Right, and Peter, and I don't see.
Oh yeah.
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 The question is, we're back on the treasurer.
Oh, is that right? Well, and I talked to Peter an hour or two ago, so I think he had every intention of being with us, so maybe he's running.
8 or 10.
Late, so. Okay.
Do you know the balances, or do you want to just hold on? I don't know.
I can look it up. I'll
Okay.
just record it from there.
Okay.
Listen, we'll kick the can down the road as far as the treasurer's report, as far as.
The members of the board are interested in seeing surveillance cameras added to some other places to provide us with more surveillance capability more than we have now.
Sir, would everybody that's not participating at the board level, please put your microphones on mute, please? Thank you.
There's Clark.
Oh, Clark. Clark, just in time, we're at the agenda item for the treasurer's report.
I guess I better unmute myself.
What?
Okay, the treasurer's report is $7,455.89 in our checking account at Sable Palm Bank.
Well, good, and I've seen earlier today some preliminary budget information, and I think we'll be talking separately about that, but it looks like we've got some numbers to kick around. Would that be the normal way of doing things, Patrick and Clark?
I think the plan was.
Yeah, Patrick and I will get together.
Okay.
And present that executive committee, have discussion, and then bring that in front of the board. I think it's December meeting for an introduction with a plan that the budget would then be finalized and voted on for approval January meeting for 2022.
Okay, good.
Schedule works for people. Just to clarify, Clark, also we received a notice about Sable Palm Bank name change for the acquisition. Did you want to record that for the minutes?
Okay. Did you get a notice about that? I didn't see that.
Sebring, I believe, was Seacoast?
Seacoast, I think. Yeah.
All right, we'll record the name change. Okay, thank you.
All right, and on to new business, and I am really thrilled. I think we will be thrilled to have Cheryl Mendelson with us, the CEO of the Van Wezel Foundation. Sasha, I'm not remembering your exact title, but we're really thrilled to have you with us and to present. Cheryl comes, and some of you will have seen her brief bio, with a wealth of experience in Chicago, the Harris Theater, and just a resume, that is just terrific. And I've had the pleasure of being with her in a couple meetings. And in addition to her skills, I just love her smile and sense of humor. You will see that as you may get to know her better. So let's just take it away, Cheryl, and give you time for your presentation. Then we'll have a bit of time for some questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, David, so much. I'm thrilled to be here. In 1 second, I think we're working on tech here, and my colleague Sasha Hausman, who is the Director of Advancement and Strategic Partnerships, is going to drive so that I can look this way and focus on the presentation. Do here. Sure. Let's see. Sasha's the pro here.
Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah, use the arrow. There we go. Yeah. Should still use-
Terrific. Well, you know, we're calling this effort "The Future Is Now," and it's the vision for the Sarasota Performing Arts Center. So I'm really thrilled to be here today to share again the vision. We're in the early stages, and it's so important that we have input from the community, from the neighborhoods, and we're thrilled to be able to work together to develop the aspiration. So we're going to give you a little sneak peek on what we've been working on. So I always like to start out with an understanding of the Van Wezel Foundation actually itself and our mission. And so our mission is to create and sustain a vibrant performing arts center, advance education, and enrich communities by inspiring minds through the power of the arts. And the Van Wezel Foundation was established in 1987 as a separate 501c3 to help support arts education and integration work at the Van Wezel Hall. Most people aren't aware that the current Van Wezel Hall is actually owned and operated by the city. So these are just some of the key parts of our core of really what the foundation has been working on in the community. These are just some numbers to share over just last year. So we've been able to serve over 58,000 students who took part in virtual arts experiences in this past school year across 5 counties. You can see the numbers here. I don't have to go through them all, but it's really at the heart and the core and the spirit of what the Van Wezel Foundation has been doing. And we look forward to extending this kind of work through a new performing arts center. So why does Sarasota need a new performing arts center? So I usually start here talking a little bit about the fact that
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
When
I didn't quite hear that.
You know, if I noticed that.
Hey, everybody, all of those on the call, please make sure you're on mute.
You know,
Right.
I don't know how popped up he is about that.
Yeah. He'd probably get all hopped up about having Moran appointed as his representative.
Ron Collins, if you could just help on mute, please.
Okay, I understand. I'll talk to him.
There he goes. He's on mute now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Terrific. So I usually open every public talk by starting with, my name is Cheryl Mendelson. I'm the CEO of the Van Wezel Foundation. And yes, there will be center aisles in the new Performing Arts Center. And then we get a big round of applause. So as I mentioned, the Van Wezel Hall is owned and operated by the city of Sarasota. And it is over 52 years old. And it sits really in one of the most vulnerable buildings because of its placement in a high-risk flood zone. In addition to that, we get the question a lot, why can't you renovate the Van Wezel? Well, there's a few reasons why, one of the largest being that FEMA compliance codes actually preclude being able to make structural modifications that exceed more than 50% of the building's value. And the kind of work that would need to happen to correct the Van Wezel would be well over the 50%. The city of Sarasota is actually undergoing an engineering study right now to be able to prepare and understanding the condition of the building and starting to take a look at what they'll do as they move forward. The current Van Wezel Hall also has 1,700 seats, so it does not support contemporary performance and patron needs. Again, we hear often about the center aisle need, as well as more patron amenities and access, if you will, in the building. So with fewer than 2,000 seats, the Van Wezel Hall is at a competitive disadvantage for those early routing of national tours, which is why you'll see many of them going to Tampa and not making their way necessarily here to Sarasota. The city also plans to convene a blue ribbon committee that will advise on the future of the Van Wezel Hall. So I want to talk a little bit about who our partners are. This is a public-private partnership with the City of Sarasota, the Bay Park Conservancy, and the Van Wezel Performing Arts Hall. The Van Wezel Foundation is leading the vision for the public-private partnership. On September 6th, as a reminder, in 2018, the City of Sarasota Commission approved this master plan concept with the new Performing Arts Center at the heart of it. So once we started to really understand that there was going to be this master plan and the need for a new performing arts center, in 2018, they really started talking to the community with patron engagement and surveying engagement activity. 12,000 people responded in 2018 to surveys talking about their aspirations and why they wanted a new performing arts center. The key data point that I like to give regarding this is that 8,000 of those people were full-time residents. Okay, this started to really lead in the direction for us to understand that this community not only deserves a performing arts center open 12 months out of the year, that the market actually can sustain and demand it. In 2020, during COVID, we did a very extensive online community outreach. We had over 150,000 touch points, 5,000 respondents, and we had 36 community partners across the region sending the survey out because it was equally important for us to understand barriers to why people maybe wouldn't come to a new performing arts center, as it was to understand what people's aspirations for one was. So here's just some highlights that, as I mentioned, that we just went through, and we're listening to the voices of our community. It's really, really important through these surveys that we understand, again, what people are looking for. So here are just a few highlights of what did they say. 90% agreed the performing arts are important to the development and well-being of the whole Gulf Coast community, contributing to jobs, tourism, retail, and economic development. 91% would attend a performance more often if there was more programming options than what exists today. 91 believe it's important for communities to provide cultural learning opportunities for children and families. And then, of course, 88% say the performing arts should be open, accessible to all, regardless of socioeconomic status, and to serve underserved communities. So a lot of the key takeaways were people were looking for more community activities. They want to be open 12 months out of the year. Families looking for more family programming and more range of ticket pricing. So we put all of this information together and we developed really what we call some guiding priorities. And we refer to them as elevate, enhance, expand, and raise. We, of course, want to elevate Sarasota as that first choice destination for the artists themselves to want to come perform in the new Performing Arts Center. Enhancing the patron experience, of course, through these contemporary facilities, advanced tech, and universal accessibility. Expanding our educational programming and expanding it not just K through 12, but with lifelong learning. It was a huge Again, a huge response to the survey that this community is looking for their intellectual capital and stimulation, and they want more programming that goes across the lifespan. And then raising our sights for creative exploration, diverse programming year-round to reinforce really Sarasota as the cultural mecca of the Gulf Coast. So here's what spaces we can expect in a new performing arts center. About 230,000 square foot venue, 2,250 seat main stage, a 400 seat flexible performance space, 10,000 square feet of education and lifelong learning, and then multiple outdoor public performance spaces. So I'm going to leave this up just for a second so you can get the sense of orientation that you would come in off 10th Street. This is again just a massing concept. So I want to repeat that again. We have not hired an architect yet. So the work that we're doing now is about engineering, it's about siting, and it's about proof of concept that we can fit all of our aspirations that we want inside the building on the plot of land that has been allocated. And then we'll start moving into design and programming. So now we'd like to share, though, a couple of case studies and some of the inspiration that's led us in this direction. This is a beautiful picture of the Perez Art Museum in Miami. It's a wonderful example of sustainability in this building to park relationship. It was designed as a community gathering space, meaning that the outdoors became a place for people to come and hang out, have music, and just grab a bite to eat and relax. You didn't have to have a ticket. This is part of the concept that we're looking at that's really important for us, that we want to be active and vibrant within an activated park, which means during the daytime, we want the building to be utilized, have the opportunity to do things both inside and outside, not just performances. Then, of course, here's a great example, and I'll repeat it again, of course, of a 2,250 seat main stage, state-of-the-art sound systems with performance technology for any kind of national or international organization to come perform. And then, of course, center aisles and greater accessibility for the patrons. You can also see we're anticipating having lobby space that's activated for galas, for lectures, for small performances, for school time activities. So there's a great use of the building during the day as well as in the evening. And we're really excited about this concept. This is a wonderful example in Tanglewood, Massachusetts. This is a smaller 400-seat flexible performance space. The seats are removable so that we can change the configuration of the space. It also has a wonderful inside-outside park relationship, but this is the opportunity to do smaller performances. It's great for lectures. We can create a flat floor and do galas, weddings, benefits, in addition to the fact that we could have this space operating simultaneously to when the main hall was happening. So we could literally be doing a small jazz concert. We could be doing a cabaret, a small contemporary dance performance, an education lecture, simultaneously while something's happening in the main hall. And then we like to call this section really reimagining the education experience. As I mentioned, we're looking at 10,000 square feet, including classrooms and studios, to expand our education programming and our lifelong learning. One of the major, I think, silver linings, if there is one, to the pandemic was how much we learned about virtual learning and distance learning, and the importance of the ability to have access significantly further than we ever could have with in person. We believe in person is still the best way to experience the arts, but in addition to that, what we know is we can have a further reach with a hybrid model that includes virtual learning. And then here's another terrific example of something that we're really excited about as we think about the fact that we're building a performing arts center for the future, 50 or 70 years into the future. I think we all can certainly say no one ever expected in our lifetime that we'd see a pandemic. And so as we think about the way that we're building, the architecture of building, the health and safety of the building, we're also thinking about access and how a new performing arts center can also be a gateway and a place for community to come together in celebrations and in other ways. This is simulcast technology. On the right is New World Symphony, also in Miami. That's a Frank Gehry design building, and the building was literally designed with a wallscape. What's happening on the stage is simultaneously being simulcast onto the wall for free out into the park. On the left is a more recent example, which is the new Reach building at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. This is an incredible opportunity, once again, to be able to create access for people to be able to come and experience the arts. And as I like to say to folks that I grew up in Boston, even though I spent 30 years in Chicago. So I am very interested in what Tom Brady is now doing in my home, that we would have the opportunity to see a lot of wins on the Super Bowl in this kind of activity too. So it isn't just about the performances. It's again about a gateway for the community to come together. So this is one of my favorite pictures to always show, before and after. It's stunning, isn't it, to see this complete parking lot, 1,600 cars, okay, converted in a concept into blue and green space with the new Performing Arts Center on it. We know the 53 acres, and this group particularly knows the value of what this master plan can do for the community. Anchoring Sarasota as a region, as a world-class cultural and tourism destination, advancing educational opportunities, turning an asphalt parking lot into a blue-green oasis with an iconic design landmark, and then the investment in our quality of life for the next generation and those to come. So I invite you all, let's do this together. We're building a place for ideas, the arts, for you. What we're asking neighborhood organizations and people in the community to do is publicly endorse the vision for the Sarasota Performing Arts Center with us. Champion the cause by being an ambassador for SPAC. Make introductions to thought leaders, key stakeholders, philanthropists. Share updates in fact-based information to inspire others in the community. Attend and host community events and platforms that share the vision for the project. Attend public meetings in support of the project. And most importantly, share your advice to ensure that Sarasota Performing Arts Center will be a place for ideas, a place for the arts, and a place for you.
Cheryl, that was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Just succinct and right on time, and we appreciate that. Now we have a few minutes for maybe some questions from the board members, and then we have time maybe open it up to others. But any comments, questions, Alan?
I do. First of all, I'm from Boston, obviously. Feel a certain affinity to it. You had mentioned lifelong learning.
Yes.
I happened to be on the curriculum committee of Ollie,
Yes.
lifelong learning. And I don't know if you've had any contact with Ollie, but I certainly would be interested in pursuing any kind of collaborative thing if
Absolutely.
you have or have not with us, because obviously this is just be a dynamite joint effort.
We agree 100% that we're not, we want this new Performing Arts Center to be viewed as a community venue. And so collaboration is our first and foremost priority. So we would love the opportunity to collaborate and to work together to understand how we can share the strengths that already exist in the community.
Has
And
there
rise
been any
together.
contact?
Not at this point.
Let me give you my card and we'll make a contact.
We would love
Alan,
that.
can you give me your card too? I've been in touch with Sil and Suncoast
Yeah, no.
about the 400-seat theater and the
Yes,
survey.
yes.
And I don't know about this organization. It's not in my list.
And it should be because well, of course, COVID kind of killed everything. But, you know, we've had as many as 100 classes and a couple thousand students at any given term.
What's the name of the organization?
Well, it's OLLI, Ocean Lifelong Learning Institute, and we are now part of Ringling College.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's a good comment
Yes.
and lead. Anybody? Roger?
Well, a little, this is wonderful, I'm enthused. But I'm gonna ask you a little harder question, where are we gonna park?
So yes, we always have the parking question. So it's funny, I just literally came from a meeting to talk about parking. And so we are collaborating with the city as well as the Bay Park Conservancy. The city will be responsible for helping to identify all of the parking needs. We have done 3 parking studies, and what we know is we need 1,000 spaces, okay, to serve parking. There is not a plan to put a parking garage onto the park site. We're looking at a variety of parking options that will be activated, okay? And again, as we envision the new Performing Arts Center, we're looking at the cultivation and of the Rosemary District and what's happening. We're looking at the quay and what's happening. We're looking at the surface parking and what will take place. So we're looking at an integrated approach to parking, and it is a collaborative effort that is still under study, but we know from our study that we've done that we need 1,000 parking spaces. Okay, we're looking at a 10-minute walk, but then we're also looking at very robust valet parking. We're looking at off-site parking with the ability to transport people. And there are many, many wonderful examples across Florida in other successful performing arts centers that we're using also as models. Because this is really, I know everyone thinks about it as parking, but it's really how do we move people, right? And there's a variety of ways to move people. And so the conversations continue. We don't have it completely locked down, but I promise you, it's critical to the success of the new Performing Arts Center that we can move people.
Cheryl, one question on timing and next steps. Can you
Yes.
just a couple milestones that maybe
Sure.
you guys are shooting for?
Absolutely. So right now, we're in the process of working on our agreement with the city that will be to finance, design, and build the new Performing Arts Center. What is different than the way that you see it today is that the foundation would actually operate the new Performing Arts Center as a nonprofit 501c3. This is best practice for all successful performing arts centers, but in addition to that, it affords us the opportunity to do more variety because the current Van Wezel Hall is set up a little more as a commercial venue. So that is a major benchmark that we're working on right now with the city. In this year, we will begin our community work in, again, looking at the aspirations to start to develop our RFQ for the architect. We also just undertook a engineering and siting study, as I mentioned to you. So we have proof of concept now that all of the criteria that would go into an RFQ. That we're hoping to happen again in 2022. And then we would hire the architect. And then in late 2022, early 2023, go into design phase. That's about a 2-year process. And then construction, approximately 36 months. But as we like to say, of course, no money, no mission. So we've got some work to do. This is planned as a public-private partnership with the hope of 50% being in private philanthropy and 50% through public funding sources. And that includes state, federal, as well as the tax incremental financing of the interlocal agreement that was approved this past year between the city and the county, with an allocation coming to the Performing Arts Center. Right now, approximately the number is 50 million.
50 million from the TIF.
TIF.
Okay. All right. Probably time for one more question to keep us on time. Any board members have any additional questions, or can we open it up to one member of
I just had a quick question for Cheryl. Excuse me. You mentioned 230,000 square feet of performance space. How does that compare to what we've got today?
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
The entire campus for the Van Wezel Hall is 90,000 square feet. So it is quite larger, the entire campus.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the actual footprint of the space, though, is just shy, actually. It's about 2 acres, okay, to put it in concept on the green of the footprint.
Right.
just one.
It looks fabulous.
One final comment. Cheryl knows, literally a half an hour ago, there was an email that I received saying that the orchestra has announced their decision to be out by Moat and UTC. So that is the breaking news, and
Yeah.
I think puts that much more motivation in me to work, all of us to work with you to ensure that your project and this project comes along as quickly as possible.
Agreed.
As long as you promise never to let them perform. Revenge could be sweet.
Well, I will say I am so enthusiastic to also hear that you're all excited. We know that a project of this complexity will have its challenges, but it's also so important to have the community as champions, and that we work together to, to overcome the barriers and keep moving forward, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We have a fiscal responsibility, but we also have a social responsibility, and we are going to make this happen together. So we're thrilled.
Great. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being with you.
you all
I know
so
your
much.
schedule and-
If anyone has any additional questions, David, I'm happy
Maybe
to
you
put my
can,
email, or through Ken, or provide my
yep.
email. I'm happy to answer them.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Thank you
Okay.
so
We
much.
know we know you have to run because of our
Yes.
prior commitment, but thank you again for your time.
And thank you, everyone here.
Okay. Here you go. Well, that was terrific. And moving right along under new business, we have, Patrick, we have a new gold associate member between you and Jamie. Jamie or Patrick, can you help with this introduction?
Yes, I wasn't quite sure who was here for Bert Simpson. If you would please introduce yourself and anyone else here.
Yes, good evening, members of the board, everyone on Zoom and in the room. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Deanna Stott. I'm the managing attorney at the Bert Simpson Florida offices. We are a law firm in 8 states, expanded into Florida a few years ago, and we're honored to be a part of this community. We do only construction defect litigation, representing associations, condo associations, as well as homeowner associations when they are struggling with defects. We're absolutely honored to be here. I've met some of you, not all of you, so it is certainly a pleasure.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Annika as well as with our office. She's met some of you.
Hey, I'll vouch for it. We're okay.
Dee says we're okay. I think we're okay.
And please, you're welcome to stay for the social chapter.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve the new gold associate member, Bert Simpson.
I'll second.
Second. Oh, okay.
Okay, by consensus are all okay. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Next item is 2022 grant opportunity. Jamie and I met with Nancy Kelly of the city, the woman in planning department, I guess, who administers the grant program. And we will discuss the opportunities and the challenges. And thank you, Jamie, because you're a real quick study on the pitfalls of grant writing and stuff. And it seems like you're really enthusiastic.
We'll see.
Talk.
We don't have the money yet. Okay, so basically the grant deadline is, it has to be in on or before January 28th, 2022. So it's really important that we have everything locked down by the next meeting. The only project based on what we would qualify for is for our events. And we would qualify for, we do believe, up to $3,000. So that's what we're going to shoot for. We can't charge admission to the event. The event must take place after March 22nd, and the money must be used by September 30th. She highly encouraged an annual members event, but we've been kind of going back and forth to what we're going to use this money for if we do get it. It's very important that we have an outline of what we're going to do before we present to them. So it's extremely important that we have this, whatever event we're going to use it for, we have to have it approved, and that's what we're going to do. It can be used for room rental and AV. It cannot be used for food or beverages. However, I did find, I didn't tell you this, I found, she said there was a $250 one with a 1-page, and that can be combined. So I will be applying for that as well. As soon as we know what event we're going to use it for, we have to have 3 bids for the location, and we have to go with the lowest bid. So it's basically the general parameters. So
and as part of this effort, we've been able to see what grants have been, applications have been sent. So to a degree, there's a bit of a starting point.
There was that was very helpful for to me. Yeah, because they sent in one of, I think it was Golden Gate had a grant approved through them, and they used it for their annual members event. So they gave me the copy of that, and at least it was a good place to start.
Jamie, I'm sorry, I missed at the beginning. Who was the source of this grant?
The city of Sarasota.
Oh, the city.
Yep.
So
this is their twice a year cycle.
Yes,
So
it's
it's
a cycle
August and January.
She did tell me that there are way more applicants in cycle A and barely any in B. So like that could go towards our favor as well.
Right. So we're $3,000. It's $3,000, and Jamie, I think, is on it. And we've had some initial conversations. We got to loop more people into the event thing.
Right.
And but sooner rather than later to begin.
I was gonna say whatever event we're going to use this for, I would definitely want approval for by the December meeting in order for me to have enough time to write this grant and get it in on time.
Okay. Any comments?
Great.
So this is a neighborhood grant,
Yeah,
and so we can still use volunteer match.
we can. Yes, yes.
50%.
50%. Yep.
So
Yep, she gave
basically
me the outline.
$1,500 at whatever the current way they're charging the labor
Yes.
rate.
Yeah, she gave me the rate. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
But it has to, the planning has to take place after March or after March 22nd. So we can't use any of the labor hours before that. It has to be after that.
We've had 2 of these grants before.
Okay.
And so there are forms already made that you may want to incorporate
I would
to
love
keep
that.
track of the volunteered hours and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Peter and I worked on those before.
Okay.
Okay.
So as far as picking a topic, that's what we're gonna do with their events planning
Meeting on the
we've
9th.
got to.
and come back forward with something.
Yes,
Yes.
we
That's
have
where-
some initial ideas to run up the flagpole and see what people think. But we've got a couple of things.
Yeah, we have that scheduled for the 19th, with Kristen, Patrick, and David.
Okay. Anything else on that? No? Old business, anything in particular under that? Moving on to city update. Kathy, do you have some?
Yeah,
some things?
just a couple of things. I know we're gonna be hitting probably on the roundabout. That was a big topic of discussion at the city commission meeting and the art structure that's being proposed for the Bayfront. But I did listen in on the DID yesterday, so I just wanted to talk to you about that just a little bit. They're having their Fresh Friday is going to be the first time this upcoming weekend. So the city has worked with them on that. That's coming out. The other thing is, we did talked a little bit about they're looking at redoing the crosswalks in the downtown area, having the brick inlay with the light, the button light, but it's still in the discussion stages. They're having it bid out, and they need to go back to the city on that. So that was those were the two big topics that were discussed. The other thing that probably is going to be brought up, I did want you to know that I was in contact with Jerry Fogel again regarding our parks. Everything went through at the prep board. One of the issues that they're having with getting everything posted and rolling everything out is the material shortage for signage, and they're having some problems getting some of the delivery on some of the parts and materials. So that's about it, but that I think they plan on having that out. They're starting at the downtown parks starting next month. That's the plan.
Okay. That's it. Okay, I had under President's report. I
Oh, yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah,
You as well.
I had a couple things. In the backup material, you will see.
Going to put on the screen here.
Yeah. Okay. Great. This is a population chart for the city of Sarasota. The red bars are the 2010 and 2020 official U.S. Census data. And the growth in the city between those 10 years, according to the census, is 5.6%. And the blue lines are the University of Florida Economic Development Department. And they have, as I understand, been regarded as the anointed estimator of populations. And you can see the blue line, the differential between the red and the blue in 2020. And it's a substantial difference, whereas they were projecting roughly a 10% growth over the 10 years. And the Census Bureau shows 5.6. The concern, of course, about this is a matter of federal funding and state funding is based on population. So this, I'm not sure what can be done about it, but at the if some funding is driven off the state number, I don't know if or is the Holy Grail only the U.S. Census? So why there was this apparent, and it's just unfathomable to me to think that our city only grew 5%. My numbers would be in the region of the University of Florida, even on the conservative side. So I went back and looked at the number of dwelling units added to the DSCA neighborhood, just our neighborhood, and it's about 1,900 units over the last 10 years. And I think I missed some. So I know people are part-time and all this kind of stuff, but something is just amiss here, and I don't know what the implications of it are. So,
David, the Wall Street Journal, I think in the last day or two, had an article about the Census Bureau's undercount.
Right.
Yeah. There is a significant undercount.
Right.
I don't know that we know yet exactly what that might be in percentage terms, but
so
we already know that.
In the article about recourse to those communities that
I doubt it. Peter, do you have a comment?
Well, we always seem to worry about the census being an economic driver, but as just as big and as important to the Charter Review Committee is that we have to probably, if you took the University of Florida numbers, we would be mandated to change our 3-district composition. Right now, we're only about an 8% difference between the highest District 2 and the lowest population District 1. But the City Commission, with some input from the Charter Review Committee, needs to look at the three districts and rearrange them. Where that population growth is very important, because the county elections office will want us to move a whole precinct, not part of a precinct. So it gets to be pretty tricky if there are 900 people difference or 1,800 people difference. This is going to cause some problems, not only in changing the member districts, but staying in compliance with the still provisions of the Voting Rights Act.
And roughly 60% of the population growth in the last 5-6 years has been in the DSCA neighborhood. And going forward with projects, site plans approved, it's going to be 60 or 70% again. So what the implications of this are, I'm not sure, but it's a happening. The other, just quickly to mention, the city voted, approved, they're going ahead with Wi-Fi installation in 4 parks as kind of a test. So Pioneer, not Pioneer, Payne, the Bayfront, Martin Luther King, and the 4th one escapes me, but that is kind of going ahead. Oh, this is back to the numbers. If you look at again, these are the US Census data showing the countywide growth was about 14%. Longboat grew 9%, and we grew 5.6%. But again, numbers can get tricky because a longboat is such a lower base to start with. But and I think Port Charlotte was 30% or something. Northport or something was 30%. And this is the estimate of dwelling units built over the last 10 years. And again, I may have missed some, but you can see a pretty dramatic change there. And even assuming part-timers, again, this estimate of only 2,900 people additional in our city over 10 years is pretty amazing miss, in my opinion.
One other thing about the city, and Catherine, you may know some of this, but the city is rolling out its trolley plan.
Yes.
The trolley will run from School Street, down Main Street, over the bridge, through Lido, Key, and out to the South Lido Park, and back. And in the beginning, it's a staggered schedule to try to hit the most popular times that somebody would ride. And I think they're trying to push it out close to Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving, December maybe. I don't think it's going to happen either, David. But
I think the idea is they're going to be able to load bikes on.
Yeah.
Bikes on too.
Okay.
And David, just one other thing from it's potentially affecting the city. I don't have the details, but it was a email I forwarded to you from Ron Collins mentioning a county change that could affect us also. I don't really understand the details on that, but I'm not sure if this is something that he's looking further, have our zoning committee look at this.
That's the one you said earlier.
Yeah, I just received it, and Ron is on.
Okay.
Make you aware that I think it's
Okay.
worth noting that let's take a look at it, see if there is an impact that our residents might be affected in the way that we can discuss.
Okay. Moving ahead, I think we have some exciting news, Ken, but there are some cultural committee. You want to update us on that?
At the last board meeting, the board approved the creation of an arts and cultural committee. And so on October 19th, we met by Zoom, and the members of the committee are Roger Berry, Patrick Gannon, Drew Clary, who's on the Zoom call, Alan Friedman, and myself as chair. We got to know each other during the meeting. And Patrick made an interesting suggestion about encouraging individual member organizations to identify art activities which can be shared amongst our members. And so we're going to talk about that at our next meeting. And then Alan suggested something that fitted exactly in with Patrick's suggestion, which would be art created by residents, right? Mm-hmm. And which would be called
On Your Own Time.
On Your Own Time. Well, it happens that Dr. Leslie Butterfield, who is on the city's Public Art Committee, has created a program called Art in Common Places, which encourages art everywhere. So Leslie Butterfield will be at our next committee meeting on November 16th to explain that program to us, and maybe we'll see how the two programs might work together. I talked at the committee about the One Heart United Through Diversity public art program. The city commission had on its agenda Monday acceptance of the donation from our committee of the piece of public art. They never made that decision, and they instead got off on the subject of location, which they'd already decided previously. So I'm talking to the staff right now about what to do about that, because I think the commission breaks significant public trust by reneging on decisions, which it has typically done with arts projects, because everybody always has an opinion. Okay. Interestingly, we are already engaged with the Van Wezel Foundation on the new Performance Arts Hall. Roger and Patrick and David and I and Mark Kaufman had breakfast with Cheryl about 4 weeks ago. And during that, she talked about the two new auditoriums in the building, especially the 400-seat theater. So we offered to do a survey or help her with a survey. So Cheryl and I got together and we created a 10-question survey. Very simple, because it's a strategic survey. It's not a design survey. And I sent that survey out to 35 arts organizations in the county, and including 2 lifelong learning organizations. But I didn't know about yours. So I'm going to make sure that they get it. But anyway, I sent out 35 surveys. 18 organizations have responded, and 3 more have committed. The opera, the ballet, and the Oslo Rep have all committed to respond to the survey. And it's interesting, there's a lot of enthusiasm. Only 2 organizations have said in their responses to the survey, no, we can't use it. We can't afford it. There are a number of small organizations that may not ever respond to the survey because they only operate part-time, or they don't have much money, or they don't use public space. So hopefully that'll be done soon. And that's this is a kind of collaboration we can achieve with the Van Wezel Foundation and other arts organizations, maybe Ringling College, Ringling Museum. Yeah, Barbara mentioned that to me earlier. We also talked about Mary Davis Wallace's Public Art Master Plan development process. This is critical. The city does not have a process for the acquisition of public art. And my project has been active for 4 years. I went to the city manager in May of 1917 or 2017. I'm old. and I don't remember 1917. Anyway, 2017. It's been 4 years to get to this point. And we're not even at a point where we can sign a contract for fabrication of the artwork, because even though we've selected the artist and the art design, because the city process is so non-existent, I guess is a kind word.
Well, and I'm just trying to be a timekeeper.
Oh, okay. All right. One more thing. You know, the DID has indicated that they will support, to the extent of $100,000 a year, a new arts festival for Sarasota. I am participating in that planning process. I attended the first meeting recently. We're really way at the beginning of that process. Anyway, we finalized the scope and goals for our committee. They're in your packet. And so I'd like to move that the board adopt these and approve these. I'll second that. Okay.
Any discussion?
We have somebody.
Hey, y'all. Have y'all thought about the artists, the art students, or anybody that would volunteer artwork, or is this just for the condos, or is this for the county or the city, or is this just?
Oh, that's not a question about this.
Oh.
That's a question about what we discussed a moment ago. But after we take the vote on this, we can answer that.
All right, any further discussion now? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay,
And
now, you had a question about what Alan's proposing.
Right, what about the art students, you know, I mean, they're artists, and would it be volunteer, could you get volunteers instead of people, artists that want to be paid, I mean, these students are.
The concept was, that would, I think, would be something separate. And I would encourage something separate like that. The concept that I had some experience years ago with this, was, it actually was not with condos, it was with businesses. And each business had its employees who chose to submit artwork. They did on their own time. They weren't artists. And there's some very, very fine work hidden from plain view. And so each business exhibited its own employees' work. And then there was a jury committee, kind of informally, that took the best of each of these, and there were probably 20 or 30 businesses that participated, and we had one show of those works. So it really was just to encourage people, ordinary people, who have some artistic bent, to show off.
All right, and let's talk a little bit after. I hope you can stay. I'd like to get into. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Let me just point out that is goal one is to identify issues, concerns related to arts in the city. So it's up to the Arts Committee to hear input, suggestions, just as that, and anyone else who has ideas or suggestions. So when the committee gets formed, one of the things that we'll need to do is to add a interest item on our areas of interest. So residents and associate members can select to be informed of when there's a meeting or something, workshop of that nature. So we'll do that going forward.
And lesson learned in my early meetings chairing this, I try to run on time. So excuse me if I don't mean to cut people off, but just to try and stay on time. Jamie, the events committee, what can you give us an update on our past?
Yeah, I think the October 13th event went pretty well, and anybody who attended it, I thought we had some really good feedback, very positive feedback on that. It was very well attended. We had out of the 100 people that signed up, I anticipated at least 75 showed up, so I thought that was pretty good. People were pretty excited to have a live event, and a few very small hiccups, but we're gonna kind of reconvene on the 19th and discuss some ways to make it a little smoother process. But I think it went pretty well.
Good. Thank you for Kristen, everybody that what you folks did and your team at CORE, all there. So thank you. Next up, Green Space, Patrick. Nothing to report. Okay. And then Peter on homeless.
Just to say that our last meeting actually was March 25th of 2021, and we've been silent since then. A lot had to do with the pandemic. Some of it had to do with where the city was going, where some of the organizations were going with the homeless. But talked a little bit to David this afternoon about reconstituting that committee. We had a lot of work done by Barbara Campbell. Thank you very much, Barbara. We were able to pick up and initiate that with Southwest Airlines. And so we have some things out there hanging that we're bringing the committee together again this month. As soon as I check with what I think are still existing members to relook at the whole homeless situation in this city.
Great, thank you. On health and safety, first there's a chair opportunity here. Is anybody interested in this health and safety thing? I've been providing some COVID numbers, but hopefully that's going to be less of a report over time. Okay.
David, I'm not volunteering, but what I would like to point out, if you want to hold up your book, the book we've been talking about, You'll be hearing more about restorative cities, the idea behind it, but if you read the subtitle, David, if I get it right?
Urban design for mental health and well-being.
Yes. Those of you who keep track of the Bay Park may have seen the recent news, and in there was the headline from their CEO, A.G. Lafley, that talked about the key elements of the Bay Park being health, well-being, and economic value. There, to me, is someone who knows how to put it together, that the health of the city going forward is as a destination city for health and well-being. There was actually a Visit Sarasota committee operating a year and a half, 2 years ago before COVID, et cetera. Actually, and I don't know if it's on the website, that Sarasota is a destination for health, well-being, and spiritual things. So, I mean, there's a lot of practitioners out here, but even more so coming out of COVID, much heightened recognition, not only from the athletics, et cetera.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is having an active health and safety committee could help bring together. We've already gotten feedback from several of the health organizations that would be interested in what we would be talking about here. Kind of like many of those organizations that participated several years ago, we did the forum on optimal living around brain health, et cetera. And so many of those would be interested in how this affects the residents, the growing number of residents having health and well-being there. So
yeah,
if we could find somebody who has some ideas,
yeah,
please.
So we're pursuing, we've got about 25 copies of this out with Marlon and Commissioner Laura and others, and getting some feedback. So stay tuned for further developments on
David,
this.
I can talk to you about that after the chair position.
Okay, and then on COVID, I share those charts with you. I had them from a week ago. I looked at the heat map on my way over here, and actually the numbers went up about 70% this week compared to last week. And I can't figure it. It's from a relatively low number, 25 to 42 in our zip codes, but I'm not haven't charted that yet. I'll do that first thing in the morning. But you have seen then, you know, the chart was kind of like this, and now I don't know if this is a anomaly or just, you know, late data collection or what.
South Dakota snowbirds.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey, David. So I have a question to ask anybody in the audience here. How many of you have received notice or know that you can go down to the Sarasota County Health Department and get your booster, Moderna Pfizer booster? Have you received, anybody received a notice that that's available? Anybody from 12 years on up?
No.
It is. Walk in 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I called to ask, and they said, oh yeah. I said, well, it's not even on the website. Well, there's another website. Anyway.
But people talk about it, and so that's how I think it's out. They know about it.
But I mean, you would think, if anything, there would be news going locally, but apparently Florida wants to keep it a secret that you go get your booster. So I'm going to suggest that maybe in our next newsletter we put a little blurb in there.
Okay.
You know, actually, you go to Publix for your booster.
Yeah.
Well, they do it now?
Yes.
Oh, they've been doing it.
The point is well taken.
Okay. Yeah,
Something else that you may want to know about, you can go to the Suncoast Blood Bank, and when you have, if you donate blood, they'll do an antibody or an antigen test for you for free. And you can see what your levels are and the need for a booster.
Yeah.
And that's free.
Okay, moving on to transportation. Roger, what do you have for us?
Well, okay, I'll comment on the trolley. The delay is because SCAT has not returned the interlocal agreement that is critical to make this happen. And so the delay is with the county at this point. Some hope, once that's done, that the vendor says it can put it together within a month if the supply line holds up. But we're all kind of pessimistic, I guess, and hoping that maybe by January. we'll see.
Roger,
And-
what is the physical entity look like, the trolley? Is it trolley-like? I mean,
Oh,
is it-
yeah, if you go to, Siesta,
Yeah, it's the
you
same.
can ride on one.
Okay, it's the same as that, basically.
Yeah, it's, what I am impressed by is the app that shows you
Yeah.
the location of the trolley and where it's at, and how soon. it'll
Yeah, I
come.
tried that app. It is kind of,
Yeah.
And the driver has a clicker to prioritize the traffic signals, so.
Oh, it's gonna be cool, I think. Being interesting.
Okay, great. And on EV charger, Ellen, anything?
nothing to report.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
Because obviously we're interested in it. This building has a subterranean garage. And do you have any idea where I could go for code of what would be allowed for an EV charger? It's a subterranean garage and it's continuous, so there are issues of what we can and can't do.
I don't know, but my guess would be the city code would cover that, because it's really an electric issue more than it is an EV issue.
I tried going online in the city's website. It's a little tough to navigate.
Were you at Lee's presentation from the
I'm sorry?
client? Did you go to Lee's presentation? Was that covered in there? I just thought maybe Lee.
They've had several, and I went to an earlier one. I just don't recall now if that was covered.
Okay.
But I'll look, because I know they've archived some of the videos.
Okay. And next up is zoning. Drew, are you with us? Yes, I see you.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yep.
You all can hear me? Well, thank you very much, David, and it's good to see the board again. You all look very much younger than the last time, so I want to know what the secret is. This is a topic, I'll be brief. It's allied to zoning, also to urban planning and to civil engineering. And has to do with the construction of the roundabout at 41, approach to the Ringling Bridge Causeway and Gulfstream Avenue. This is an FDOT project, and the original plans showed if you're traveling north on 41 past Marina Jack, there is one lane entering onto Gulfstream. All of a sudden, there has been a change, and there is another plan offered where there is not only the entrance onto Gulfstream, but there are also two entrances from Gulfstream onto the roundabout and northbound 41, or going around, going southbound. The concern is that it will take away a lot of space right now in front of three particular condominiums. They are Marina Tower, Bay Plaza, in which I reside, my wife and I, and the Jewel, which is at the corner of Gulfstream and Main. At the City Commission meeting on Monday morning, actually didn't speak till Monday afternoon, 7 representatives cooperatively and individually from these condominiums voiced their concerns to the City Commission. I think that their concerns are legitimate. It will greatly increase traffic on a secondary artery, and probably also all the way down Coconut for people to come south on Coconut and go onto the 41 roundabout at Gulfstream. I believe that their cause is good, and I think that they would really benefit if there were a larger organization of downtown condominiums who might care to consider supporting them, joining their voice and advocating for them.
Drew, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think the three of us are down here nodding. I was there and watched it in person, and what, whether we like it or not, what was agreed, and I believe a 4-to-1 vote, was to continue with what had been originally envisioned, and that's so-called east lane, but with nothing westbound, and proceed with that in the interest of time and complexity, and that maybe down the road, if you excuse the pun, see how that works or doesn't work, and then potentially revisit that. But there were some not insignificant costs associated and real concerns about the delay. It looks like the roundabout completion is already pushing back till September, October, and so forth. But again, 8 or 10 people did speak about an alternative approach, but what the commission voted to proceed with was this so-called original FDOT design that did have some public input, I understand, 4 years or so.
Right, exactly, did. Oh, so there was a vote, and the vote was
Yeah,
to
and
the original plan just to have the one entrance onto Gulfstream. Good.
the one exit, the one exit off of the roundabout eastbound on
Right.
the Gulf. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. All right, okay. Anything else, Drew?
That's it. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, hey, wait a minute, David. Just one thing. If you really cannot find an individual who would fall for the opportunity to be the head of a health and safety committee, I certainly would love to pinch hit until such appropriate, capable individual might present themselves. You don't have to say no now. You can hold on.
All right, so noted. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, David.
Moving on, Bay Park Conservancy, Bob.
Yes, the Bay Park, you'll receive the construction update. It's moving along wonderfully. They've raised $30 million so far. And I'll just continue to distribute that. I'm part of the neighborhood outreach committee for the Bay Park. So as I receive them, I'll send them all to you. And I hope you're also sharing them with as many people as you can.
Yeah, those are nice. I like them.
Okay, great. CCNA, Ted.
The CCNA has not met since we met last.
Okay.
So there really is nothing new. Would you like to have something from the prep board?
If it's real quick, because again, we're in the interest of.
Just that we are having on the, it's a week from this Saturday, the Bobby Jones Golf Course is having a nature walk, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. That should be very interesting. It'll be Audubon type deal, as well as an update on what's happening with Bobby Jones Golf Course, which I know Patrick sent me an email today asking what was going on with it. And right now the city is basically in a conundrum of having too many ideas going into one place and nobody being able to make a decision. It's kind of paralysis by analysis.
Okay, thank you. On the Rosemary update, I can tell you the park design work continues. We had over roughly 850 people responding to the survey. So thank you all. I'm sure everybody in the room contributed to that. About half the people lived in the Rosemary, half didn't. So we're going to slice and dice, see what similarities and differences in. But there was some good input. Kinley Horn has that, analyzing it now based on that input. They're going to come up with, we have one concept that we've had for a couple of years. They're going to come up with a couple different concepts, much like the Bay Park did, a couple rendering treatments to get further input. They hope to have that by around the 1st of December for some additional input. And then depending on that, go into refinement. we've been encouraging the city to demo those buildings. We have a holiday party in the Rosemary on the night market on the 16th. So we tried to set a deadline of December 16th to have those buildings knocked down and at least dirt. So we've got something to celebrate in addition to the holidays. We're in close communications with Jerry Fogel, and they've been cordial to work with and trying to do what we can. On the Boulevard of the Arts and 10th Streetscape, initial survey work and engineering kind of looks is progressing as we speak. Those projects, as far as getting some concepts, are probably a little bit further out, maybe April, but they're moving. And it seems like there's, on both the project, there's a will at the city commission level, we hope, to keep those progressing without a stutter in the middle. So that's about what I've got. Some relatively good news in my opinion. Jamie and Kristen, do you want to take away the new news section of our program?
Yay. Thank you guys, really, the presentation today was so, I was like blown away. I love that. So again, everybody, platinum members and gold members, new news is what we're looking for. And let's go in alphabetical order, which that's going to start us off with, sorry, Kate, I know it started with a C.
Well, I don't know if I have much new news. I think the only thing new that I can share with you is that, well, first of all, my name is Reba Jackson, and I'm from Cadence Bank Association Services, which specializes in taking care of all your HOA condo and co-op needs. All depository services, loans, treasury products and services are all tailor-made for your needs. And we do have an entire team that does nothing but that all day, every day. We are going through a merge ourselves with Bancorp South, and once that merge is completed, we will be the 5th largest bank in the Southeast. So significant growth for us. So we're looking to expand. Our technology is going to be heightened, and we're looking forward to that. We're already beginning the stages of that. So more to come. As I learn more, I'll share that with you. But if you're looking for a new bank, or if you just would like to find out more about us, give us a call and we'll send you some information, talk to you freely about that. If you want to park overflow funds with us, we're happy to do that as well. But we love to partner and really have a relationship with all our communities. You're not just an account number, you're not just a name and an addition, but you are real people to us. And we like to partner with you and help you plan those projects and those future plans that you have. We want to be there to help you with those.
Thanks, Reba. I mean, going way back, I know Reba, and I know that the association side is just that, it's personalized, it's one-on-one, but I assume that you're also doing full service banking.
Full service banking.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Right. Speaking of which, it took a lot to get her here. You guys owe me like a lot, but we have Nature's Own here today, our local hired killer. Go ahead.
Hey, y'all. I didn't know y'all were doing this. She was keeping me in the dark. I thought y'all were doing it all the time.
Not true. That's
New
not
news. There is no new news other than news.
Sorry.
It's a big road.
It is November. It is the second swarm season of termites. Do not panic. I just got a frantic email. Longboat Key. Imagine it. It is the season. If y'all don't want termites to bother you, close your blinds, turn your lights off for an hour after the sun goes down, and you will not have them bothering you unless they're inside your house. If they're in your house, then call the professionals. And she stole my tagline, but I have been killing lots of stuff, and it's been crazy. And I wanted to ask the lady how I've always called I'm 4th generation native. I'm like, well, I heard you got rats over there. If you do, you know I'm gonna take care of them. Yeah, it's good to see y'all. I've missed seeing y'all, but I'm back.
Thanks, Dave.
And Jamie, and Peter, our other person that I was talking about, tried to get them to come. They were
Okay.
but I'm working on it.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Yeah, we love those updates on the icky things that we don't talk about. Last on the platinum level would be my people. I represent four businesses in the at the platinum level. And one of them, well, actually 5 if you count me, but I don't need to talk about me. What I want to talk about is a Sequence Insurance puts out a monthly report on updates regarding insurance for your buildings. I brought the October report here if you guys want to take a look at it. If you want to get on the mailing list for that, you can do that. As only insurance company that I've ever known in this industry for almost 15 years, it sends out a monthly report on here's what died, here's what's going on, and here's what you need to know for your property. So that's new. That I haven't talked about before. Another thing I want to talk about is the latest bill update legislative for condos. The legislative session is moving quick after Surfside, and a lot of things are already being drafted. A lot of this, if you want to take a look at, this is just preliminary. There's a lot more to come. but a lot of this entails insurance, but there's also the engineering aspect. So for Forge Engineering, that will be known come January as Suffolk because they got bought out. There's a lot in here about really needing to consult a professional engineer when you have your reserve studies. And for your insurance purposes, they may start requiring that reserve study to be on file, or you could lose your coverage. It's getting pretty stiff. Regarding that, the bill's being drafted as well. Maintenance, insurance companies are requiring you to condos to be on top of their maintenance. So I'd like to give a little plug for professional plumbing, also a platinum member, your pipelining and all of that needs to be maintained. They're going to look at that. The last one is Right Way Emergency Services. Of course, as a DSCA member, you have access to the free emergency response plan that they offer. They'll do drone services. So if you have Matterport, which is a 3D inside, outside record for you to give to your insurance companies to show what your assets are. But let's go to our gold members and talk to Berg Simpson, our new member. Do you want to say a quick word?
I'll say a quick word. Hey, I'm Ani Comentius. I'm with Berg Simpson Law Firm. I do their marketing and business development. So as Dion mentioned, we are a construction defect law firm. We're here to help homeowner associations and condo associations with construction issues such as water intrusion or stucco issues or cracks. So we are here to help, and we're happy to be part of this group. So thank you.
Thanks for joining. Real quick, I've known Berg Simpson for a long time. Just so you know, they're really the only firm that I know of that puts the funds into the investigative process. I mean, Deanna probably can say that a lot better. She's a great speaker and she speaks a lot of my investigation for that reason. But a lot of firms don't do that. They don't take on that liability. So go to them first, see if they'll take on the liability for all that testing if you have an issue. And then if they can't do it or don't think that they can support that claim, they'll refer you to a really good firm. Maybe.
See, I don't even need it.
Let's not forget Serpro, who's not on the list. Let's get them on the gold member list.
That's gonna be all autographed. Now, hi, I'm Brandon. I work at Serpro, North Sarasota office, which is right off of Fruitville Road by the interstate. We are leading industry in fire, water, mold remediation, and right now we're noticing a lot of semi-neglected units. They're going on vacation for a few days, and they don't turn the water off. That's the big thing. So the main thing is try to turn your water off if you're going to be leaving for a couple days, because a little 50-cent piece of plastic can cost pretty much your entire condo damage and everyone below you.
Did you have an upcoming event?
Yes, we do have an upcoming event. It's going to be on next Friday. It's going to be at the Marine Jacks Ballroom. So if you guys are, everyone is pretty much welcome. We like to involve anyone in downtown community, board members, directors, community association managers, pretty much anyone. It's a free event. You guys can come, and we're going to be talking about road problems, pest problems, and basically how to accurately deal with this. So yeah, it's going to be 11:30 to 1 o'clock, pretty much.
Awesome. All right, and tomorrow at the Sarasota Opera from 5 to 7, we're also having a networking event. Feel free to join in, board members and managers, you're welcome. And I think that has solved everything. Everything ties together. Your water problem could be a construction defect, which might cause rodents, which might cause all that. So it's all encompassing here. We're here to help.
All right, well, thank you. And at this time, we comments from member representatives, anybody here or on the Zoom, member reps with any comments or questions?
This is Jim from the Joe. Thanks for a good meeting, David.
Thanks for a good meeting.
Oh, well, good, thank you. And I'm seeing Barbara, did you have your hand?
Yes, and the Arts and Cultural Committee that you have, how about adding the beautiful fountains of the city to that committee and somehow working it in? So many of our fountains have been neglected. They're sort of ignored. And then when they're ignored for a long enough period of time, then they become what's called decommissioned. We have some beautiful things here. They're artistic and we're just letting them go. I don't know, maybe you can suggest something else, but I'm heading it in your direction.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I could speak to that. I talked to one of the plumbers who was working on a fountain last year, and he admitted to me, or he said that the city does not have a fountain expert. So they just shift people around, and that's been the issue. And like the one in Hamel Park has been decommissioned for 2 or 3 years with the rubber construction mounts sitting around it. So we have dozens of fountains, but we do need on the city staff a fountain maintenance specialist, which I believe we do not have.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay,
You're
good
absolutely
comment.
right.
And then Ted Wilson, Brett, what do you have?
I've gotten rumor that the city is looking at making an inspection requirement every 40 years or whatnot on condominiums on high-rise buildings. I think we would be interested on this level to know what the city is doing and what their proposals are. Maybe a future meeting.
Yeah, I was at the city commission meeting on Monday, and if memory serves me correct, that they wanted to wait to see what the state was going to do before they weighed in very much.
I know they published the Broward and Miami
Yeah, right.
inspection requirements.
Correct. Yeah, so I believe the at the city level, I mean, they're kicking the can down the road a little bit.
Well, we ought to watch the kicking of the can.
Right, right. So, anybody else, happy to have had a pretty good group today.
David, I think Catherine.
Oh, Catherine, sorry. Who's that?
Hi. I'm new to this group and I really appreciate and value everything that you're doing there for our city. And I want to say thank you. But I also wanted to just highlight the roundabout again one more time to make sure that we're clear. We understand that that's still kind of in the air. In a year or so, they're going to revisit it possibly if there's any warranted issue with what's going to go on with it. There was a third choice. There was 3 choices, not just 2. Another choice that was most of us that were there speaking were looking to close both lanes. So there was no way to go in and out, close it off and make green space. I'm sure you're all aware that we have a problem with flooding. So green space would help with that. From a health perspective, it would help people who live on Gulfstream to be able to have a close park versus having to cross the major road to get to Bayfront. So I think that there is a good possibility if we joined forces across this, at least on Gulfstream, and we got names, phone numbers, emails, and had enough interest from people that want to close it so we can have more green space, possibly use it for the arts that we have, and there would be revenue that would be generated from that activity for the city. So there is a viable, I think, cause to go ahead and start planning for that. We have about a year. It's only tabled for about a year. Their comment was they would revisit it within a year.
And Catherine, I hope, I was there and I'm torn. I heard the impassioned comments of those 10 folks, but I also heard that some years ago this was brought up and owners in condos west of 41 wanted to see that opportunity. Owners east of 41 tended to be of the view. And I think what Marlon said, again, rightly or wrongly, I'm being the messenger here, was that when this was visited 4 or 5 years ago, that there was the same tug of war. And in the end, having that eastbound leg was kind of a compromise, for lack of a better word. So again, I'm not taking a position, certainly DSCA with condo associations west and east of 41 is in a tricky position to do anything as this organization. It doesn't preclude you folks doing what you want, but I just
In addition to your comment, I'll just state that if any of you live close by this, it looks like Rome, Italy. And so there is a difference between what we had and what we have now. So there's a lot of concrete out there. And adding more concrete is not beneficial to anybody either on the west or on the east. So I think that opinions will change, because when they look out the window, they're looking at Rome, Italy too. And navigating that horrendous looking concrete landscape visually from any angle is not pleasing to the eye, nor is it for the soul or for the health of the residents. So there's a lack of green space. So I think our role as people who live in condos downtown should consider creating as much green space or reserving as much green space as possible for the health of its residents. That's my suggestion. I understand what you're saying. Go ahead and go do it if you want to do it. But I also think that you guys have a really great organization, and it's kind of like redundant to go ahead and start getting names, gathering names, phone numbers, doing all that when you already have access to that. And disseminating the information, it takes a coalition of people. But I think more green space is a definite bonus for the city and the health of your residents also.
I think, well said, yeah. So I think well said, and this organization has always been incredibly pro-green. So this is a complicated situation. Let's close it off then. Oh,
Next meeting.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's-
discuss the headliner and then what's happening at 5:30.
Yeah, our next meeting is December 1st, and our guest speaker is going to be Commissioner Aurora and possibly Mayor Aurora at that time. That he's going to be with us then, and then following the meeting, we are going to have our holiday party. So we hope everybody can make it, and we plan to have the event here. So any final remarks of anybody else? Cheers. Oh, right. All right.
They're already.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll consider ourselves adjourned.